Hi, David Collins Stevens here, and you think it's difficult to replace your retrofit windows? It's not. We're going to show you how, and you can save a ton of money.
Moo.
So what we have behind us here is a window that needs to be replaced. Now there's many ways to replace a window. You can knock out the stucco, you can call a contractor. There's many complicated, expensive ways to do it. We have a simple way to do it. This right here is called a single hung window because it slides up and down. We also have a video for a side slider, which is just called a sliding window. They basically are the same, except for the measurement part, which I'm going to show you. So we're going to replace this window with a retrofit window. This is in Southern California, and we have a stucco finish on the outside, and we have a drywall finish on the inside. So the first thing you want to do is measure your existing window. Now this window frame is going to stay in place. The stucco is going to stay in place. We're not going to bust anything out. All we're going to do is take off the screen. They come off pretty easy. And what you're going to do is you're going to take two measurements for your window. The first is the width, and the second is the height. So what you want to measure for the width is your inside flange, whatever sticks farthest into the opening. And right now this is 21 1/8 inches from here to here. So write that down. That's your width. The next you're going to do is the height. The height is going to be the same thing. The highest flange on the bottom to the lowest flange on the top, okay, which is about 57 inches. So write those two measurements down. When you go to order your window, you're going to order it width by height, and be sure to check with the guy you're ordering it with that that's the way they've got it too. That's pretty much an industry standard to go width by height, but just to make sure, because you don't want to get your window in and have it be opposite because it won't fit. Now, just to double check yourself, you're going to go inside, which is what we're going to do next. You're going to measure from the inside. Okay, inside measurement. We're inside the same window right now. So now we're going to take the inside measurements. Once again, you take the width first, you take the farthest inside flange to the next inside flange, and it's the same. It's 21 1/8. The reason why we do both sides is sometimes the inside flange will stick in a little bit further, and with the window closed, you cannot see the inside flange from the outside. So you want to make sure you get whatever flange is sticking in the opening further than anything else. And the same thing on the bottom. You're going to measure from the bottom inside flange that's sticking up most to the top. And this is also the same measurement. So that's good for this window. So you take those measurements. That's not the size that you order the window. That's the size of your opening. From those measurements, you subtract 1/4 inch in each direction. So like this is 21 1/8. So we're going to take off 1/4 inch, which is going to make it 20 7/8. That way, if this window is not square, you can put in a new window without having to adjust anything. Now, the other thing about a single or double hung, they're a little bit different than a slider, removing them, because you actually have to bend this flange to get out these sliders. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes they have a little bracket that comes off and they unscrew, but in these particular windows, we actually have to bend this flange out to pull these both of these sliders out. So we're going to bend this flange out. Now, because this flange is actually a little bit bigger than on a sliding window, our window is going to fit in between this. On the outside, the fin that rests up against the stucco, which you're about to see in a minute when we put in the new window, sometimes you need to order that a little bit wider than standard, just to make sure the new flange on the vinyl window covers up the old flange and a little bit of the stucco. That gives you your watertight seal right there. So we're going to go ahead, we'll go back outside, and I'll show you how to take this window apart, and I'll show you the new window that we already ordered. Okay, now we do have at hownowhub.com a list of tools you'll need, a list of step-by-step instructions, and the average cost of windows. So you can kind of look at those downloads and decide if you want to do this yourself, depending on how much money you're going to spend. It'll give you a good idea if you get a price for your windows from a contractor, and then you go price your windows and look at our downloads. You can kind of see how much money you're going to save. I guarantee you, it'll be a lot. It'll be worth it. Whenever I handle glass, mirrors, windows, whatever, I always put some sort of tape on the glass itself, just in case it breaks. This is not tempered glass. Tempered glass basically is two pieces of glass put together, and it's got a piece of plastic in between. So if they break, it all stays together. It doesn't cut you up. This is called plate glass. Plate glass, when it breaks into shards that are sharp and can cut you. But if you tape it up like this, if you happen to break it, it will help stop it from falling apart and possibly cutting you. So the other thing we do, we wear gloves.
Oh, and what else do you do?
I don't know what.
Put a blanket down.
Oh, yeah, you can't see it in the picture, but we do have a blanket underneath the window here. We have a Trex deck we're working on. We just put that in a little while ago, and we don't want to mark it up with anything falling on the deck. So basically, we're protecting everything all the way around ourselves, the furniture, the deck, everything. So
And you can buy those blankets where?
the blankets you can get at Harbor Freight.
Oh.
Be sure to get them on sale. You get anything at Harbor Freight, get it on sale, because they constantly are having sales. So this top window, the stationary window, which that's called, has some flanges around it that basically just pop off. A little hammer and chisel action here, just like that.
That was easy.
It is so easy. Now, I recommend, that voice you hear in the background is my recommendation. Not him personally, of course, but you need a second person usually to do a window. Because sometimes when you put it in, you'll need one person to hold it on the outside while you go in and adjust the inside, which you'll see in a minute.
That's the most important part.
Yes. Now, this particular window right here, we're actually going to take out this piece of glass right here, because that's actually what's holding that glass in, were those pieces I took off, and some a little bit of rubber glue on there, it looks like. So the other thing we're going to do, which we talked about, is this flange right here, which is sticking out. These are bull nose pliers, flat nose right here, and you just grab this thing and bend it back and forth, and it will just snap off. Now, if it's not sticking out past the stucco, don't worry about it. You can see it coming off right there. Right now, I'm going to go inside and try to pop this glass out while Chuck holds it from the outside. So he'll need some gloves, and you can watch us hurt ourselves.
Yeah. You want to say anything to the crowd?
No?
Okay, I'm going to stand back. Good catch. Did you see that? Did you get that? Holy mackerel. That was beautiful, Dave.
Thank you.
Just beautiful.
Okay, as you saw, plate glass. We didn't cut ourselves. How about that? Sometimes on a double hung or single hung window, these frames, you can move them left or right and they will come out, the whole frame and the glass. These particular ones are so old, that's not the case, so you have to break the glass. We have the center rail in here. You can use a Sawzall if you have one. If not, this thing will bust loose. It's screwed in from the sides with screws like this. You just get your flat bar in here, put it against this flange right here, pound it in, and there you go. You can pop it out just like that. So you need to take the center rail out, just like that. So now we still have the slider is still in here. And if you move it left or right, it will not come out. So what we'll have to do is we have a flange right here. you can cut that flange off, or you can grab your bullnose pliers and this flange will twist off. Now this is assuming, of course, you have aluminum windows, which is pretty standard out here in California. These are aluminum, so they're pretty easy to bend and break and that kind of stuff. As you can see, this flange just really comes right off. You have your flanges, your frame's still in place. That's the most you can take out. Don't take out any more of this frame, because this is your waterproofing right here, your old waterproofing. By the way, if this window is leaking water, there's a chance your new window will too. So if you actually have a water leak and that's why you're replacing your window, you might want to call somebody to look at it first before you order retrofit windows. So once again, we have the same problem, is this window will still not slide left or right and come out. So we're going to break the glass.
Breaking the glass out is no big deal.
No big deal. So I'm going to go inside and do that from the inside.
You're going to go inside.
I'm going to go inside.
I'm going to film.
And there actually is a certain amount of satisfaction with breaking something apart, just as long as you don't get hurt. So you want to make sure you get all of the glass out of the frame before you start really messing with it, because even the smallest piece of glass can cut you. Wear your safety glasses, which is, my sunglasses are also safety glasses, which is why you see me wear them all the time. So we cleaned up the glass, we didn't get hurt. Hey, today's a good day. So what we have left is a frame. So now we can just bust the frame apart. Just like that. These cables in here, right here, have to cut those. Those are basically your counterweights or springs, depending on the style of window. And voila, your frame, or what's left of it. Your window is now ready to have the new window put in. Tuck those back out of the way. So that's it. This frame stays in place. Do not remove this frame. If you remove this frame, go buy yourself a new construction window. That is actually a big difference between retrofit and new construction. Retrofit fits over this frame. New construction, you bang out the stucco and fit it on the studs.
Moo.
We use Milgard, and we always get dual glazed, low E, tempered. Usually the most expensive part is the labor, but you're already saving money on labor, so go ahead and spend a little more on the window and get the best window you can. We got bronze on the outside. They usually come in white. This is bronze on the outside and white on the inside. This flange is basically going to go up against the stucco. You're going to silicone it into place, and we usually pull the screen out too, just so we don't end up damaging the screen. Now, if it were a sliding window, we would take out the sliding part of the window because it makes it lighter, easier to work with. But because this is a single hung window, just like our old window, it was built all put together in place. So on every window there's a label. The label will tell you, usually, that it's right side up. But in case it doesn't have a label, it's very important you put the window in right side up. Because if you don't, it will leak water through the window when it rains. Now, that measurement that we took from left to right, this is the inside of the window. So this measurement right here was this measurement minus a 1/4 inch in both directions. So this window theoretically should just fit right in here, no problem. We're gonna give it a shot right now. And no, we haven't tested this yet, so this is live action. Put it in the bottom first, tuck it in all the way, and voila.
You can see how easy it is to handle.
Just like that. So, if you don't have a label, the way you tell if this is right side up or upside down, it's very smooth at the top. You have these little weep holes at the bottom down here. What this does is the water runs down the window, hits this one, then it goes into this frame and it goes in these holes right here and comes out right here. If you put this in upside down, the holes are on top and this track fills up with water and sometimes leaks into the house. So be sure to put them in right side up. Because we have a 1/4 inch gap on the inside, we're gonna go inside and show you, but you wanna center this, and this is where it takes two people. One person holds it and the other person kind of slides it back and forth to make sure you're centered in the opening. And that's basically how you install a window. You put silicone around the edge here, which we're gonna show you. Now, also, screw in the window from the sides. Now on a single or double hung, you have to be careful screwing in through the side that you don't hit any of the mechanisms. How you finish out the inside of the window, I know we haven't put the window in yet, but you have to do this before you actually put in a window. So Chuck's gonna lift up the window for me. You dry fit it into place, you put the bottom into place like that, and you just bring it in. Just like that. So now you notice on a single hung window, you have a pretty big gap here on the side. So how are you going to finish that off? It's pretty easy. When you order your window, be sure to order this plastic. It's got double stick tape on one side. And what you do with this, you just peel off that tape and it sticks right on the side of the window here. Like that. And then on the bottom, it sticks right here like this, and that basically finishes it off. And then you caulk between the plastic and the window. But the one thing about a single hung window is we ordered the extra wide flange because we knew we were gonna have a pretty big gap in here. You don't have to do this, but I highly recommend it, is we've cut some 1x2 bats. And they fit right in here like this. We're gonna screw those into place, and that gives us something to stick the plastic to. And we use Scotch double stick tape. We'll put that on the board right here, and that will help to ensure that our plastic trim stays on. You don't have to, but it's definitely a better job if you do it that way. So we're gonna go ahead and pull the window out, and we're gonna screw in these bats. I use a gold-plated deck screw to screw these in. Doesn't take much, 3 should do it. Okay, so we drill some pilot holes in this skinny one down here.
Drop that screw.
Because a piece of wood this small will split out. Just like that. Okay, so we're good. I know that split, but as long as it's in there solid, and it doesn't come past the edge of the window, which we'll find out right now by putting it in, we should be good. Okay, so this is pretty flush right here. The wood's pretty flush. We left enough room for the double stick tape because that's kind of thick. And we're good to go. So what you also want to do is you're going to screw through the side, a hole through the side jamb. Now there will be two pieces of plastic there. So you're going to go through twice, but on the first one, you're going to drill a hole big enough for the screw head to go through. Because what it's going to do is it's going to suck in through that hole and bury itself inside the frame in the second piece of plastic. So we're going to put 4 screws in each side. Just like that. So that's through one piece of plastic. Then you take a smaller bit through the same hole and into the second piece of plastic. Now this screw will go through both holes, but it will catch on the second piece of plastic and hold it in place. No matter what you do, do not screw in the bottom jamb. The bottom jamb is a watertight seal. That's what these holes are for, so water can go in here and drain out. If you screw through this, you're putting water inside the house. So like I said, we'll put 4 screws in each side, one bottom, one top, and we'll kind of divide the remainder into 3 sections, which would be a total of 4 screws. So 8 screws will hold it in, plus the silicone we're going to use on the outside. You do all of this before you silicone the window in place. Now here I'm going to pull out the stops so I can put the screws behind the stops. So we are now basically ready to screw this into place. So we're going to pull the window back out, make sure we're nice and clean all the way around, make sure our wood stops are nice and secure, and then we're going to silicone the outside flange, which will go. Okay, so we have the window out. Like I said, on the inside we have our wood shims in place. We did dry fit it one more time from the outside just to make sure it looks good. We knocked off any burrs around the stucco that really stick out. There weren't many, there's just a couple, so we knocked them off. Now your stucco is not going to be perfectly flat, so the window is going to sit a little bit out in some places and flush in some places. We have a solution for that. We do not use silicone. You can use silicone. I like using Vulcum. This is a rubber-based product, so when it dries, it's like rubber. It's just like rubber, but it comes in a bunch of different colors. This is ivory, and this one's buff. And as you can see, our stucco is like a light tan. We got them both just to see which one matches better. I believe it's going to be buff. It's going to be the one we're going to use. This stuff is just like most silicones. You must, I repeat, you must poke the inside seal right in here. Otherwise, what happens, Chuck?
The back blows out and then you get it all over yourself. It's a big mess.
Yes, it's a big mess and you end up throwing the caulking and the caulking gun away.
And I've done it at least 3 times.
Yes. So we're going to just put a little spot on here and see how it matches. The reason why you want to match the stucco is it could squeeze out, and I don't know if you can see that. I'll zoom in on it, but that's a pretty dang good match.
That color buff.
We're going to go ahead and compare the white or the ivory. We know white will not work. Poke the seal. Poke the seal. Sounds like the name of a rock band or something. So, now we're going to try the ivory on there. And the ivory,
That's not bad either.
I like the buff better. We've opened the ivory, so what we'll do, we're going to do 2 layers of Vulcum. So we're going to do one right around the metal flange right now. So go ahead and use the ivory because it probably will not squeeze out. We have a wide flange on the new window. So this is basically your waterproofing to the outside, which is why you do not disturb the flange, the existing flange, because the existing flange is already waterproofed into place. And this will take approximately 1.5 tubes per window, depending on how big your window is. Go ahead and buy enough so you don't have to stop right in the middle and run down to the store. It's better to have too much and not enough. This Vulcum is about $9 a tube. It's about the same cost as silicone. I feel it's a much better product than silicone. But if you can't get it, silicone will do the trick. You put it right at the bottom, right at where the metal meets the stucco. Okay, this used 1 tube. So there we go. So what we'll do with the buff is after we set the window in place, we're going to mask the edge of the window and we're going to use that buff to fill in between the edge and the stucco because there will be some spots where you have almost a 1/4 inch gap. So we're going to go ahead and put this in. Same way, you put the bottom in first. And squeeze it into place. But you can see over here, you can see we have almost a 1/4 inch gap, whereas over here we're tight. We're actually tight at the top, we're tight at the bottom, because the wall itself bows a little bit, and that's pretty typical with stucco. But basically, that's it. So if you don't feel you got enough, you can always pull it out a little bit and check and make sure you got a good tight seal all the way down. Which we do. Came in contact all the way down. So our first seal works great, and then the second seal is just kind of like insurance to make sure it doesn't leak. If it does leak, there's only 2 reasons why. One is you did not put enough Vulcum on there to mesh this to the frame, or the window itself is faulty. Okay, so Chuck's going to hold this, and we're going to go inside and screw it. Okay, for the screws in the side, I usually use a 2-inch deck screw like this. So as you screw this in, now the window itself will come pretty square, so you don't have to worry about it. On a slider window, you do have to square them as you go in, but on a single or double hung, they pretty much operate because they are square from the factory. You might want to test this just to make sure it slides nice. If it does, you're good to go. But what we're going to do first is we're going to start on this bottom corner. We'll start on this corner over here where you can see it better. You kind of push in on this, and then you screw it into place. Now you don't tighten it really tight. You just tighten it enough to hold it in place. I'm going to do this corner now. You can feel it snug up there. And then you just kind of work your way up. Just like that. The reason you don't want it too tight is this is a vinyl window. And you don't want to bend the vinyl out. Because after we get into place, what we're going to do is we're going to take some shims and put them in there, and then we'll tighten them up. Right here. Now what's happening here is you can see the first hole there, the screws on the inside of it. This is sucking, the screws are going through the first hole, through the second hole, and into the wood. So actually hidden behind the first hole. You don't want to just screw it through 2 pieces of plastic, because you're asking the plastic to hold quite a bit, because you have this channel in there for the window to slide, and you want the plastic that's on the very outside to snug against the wood. I'm going to go ahead and get some shims, and we're going to put just a couple shims in here so we can tighten it up and make sure it doesn't shift in the future. The labels, you peel them off. Do not leave the labels facing the sun. If you leave this label on while this faces the sun, these will bake right onto the glass, and they're very hard to get off. So in a bathroom, we use tempered glass. I usually use tempered glass on all my windows because it's safer and doesn't cost that much more. But by a bathtub right here, you're required by code to use tempered glass. Check your local building code to make sure you don't need tempered glass if you're not going to use it. The other thing, if you are getting a permit, the inspector will want to see these labels, so save them, don't throw them away, because they have on here the ratings, the energy ratings. In California, it's a big deal. In some other states, it's not, but some states it is. So be sure to save these so you can show the inspector. When you order your windows, make sure they're rated for your zone that you live in, because if they're not and you're getting a permit, they will make you change them. So we're going to go ahead and get some shims and tighten this up. So we have our screws in place. So now we just want to check level. Pretty much you're bound by the existing frame, but we do have some play in here. So if we can make it level, we will. It's actually leaning a little bit too far to the right. So the way we alter that now is to go in and loosen these screws on this side, on the right side. And then you tighten these screws a little bit on the left side. And that will pull it over some. Check it one more time. Now it is a vinyl frame, so you gotta be careful not to bend the vinyl frame by screwing it too tight. This is pretty much the best we're gonna get it. So at this point, we go ahead and put in some shims down here at the bottom, right by the screw. And then you can tighten your screw up a little bit. And that'll hold those shims in place. Go ahead and shim the other side. So you can cut these shims off with a utility knife. I use a Dremel tool because I'm a little lazy. And then you can use these shims again to get the top. So our window is basically tight and secure into place now. I'm going to cut off the rest of the shims. And be sure to put your stops back into place. What that does is that stops the handle from hitting the top of the window right here. Make sure it's working good, which it is. The next thing you're going to do is we're going to go outside and silicone the edge, or Volcrum the edge, I guess. This is where we take the buff, because we like that better, and silicone between the frame and the stucco. Now notice I did put masking tape on it. As you can see right here, the masking tape I put halfway on the frame and on the stucco to leave about 1/8 to 1/4 inch gap between the edge of the frame and the edge of the tape. That way, when you put your stucco or your Volcrum in here, you want to squeeze it in there pretty tight, because this really is your secondary backup system for waterproofing. So you cut the tip of the caulking gun at an angle, so when you push it in there, it squeezes in there really tight. Just like that. Always have some rags handy, and this is where you push that Volcrum in there. And as you can see, it pretty much got all over the place. But fortunately, we have tape on here. I like to push it down to where I can see the edge of the tape. Because when you pull the tape off, if you can't see the edge of tape, it leaves a big ridge right there. But now when you pull off that tape, that is a pretty clean line. Now your other option is to use Volcrum that's the same color as the window frame. Either one is fine, but try to pick a color that either matches the stucco or the window frame.
Ooh, that's nice.
That's pretty, huh? And then I just go one more light swipe down it, just to rough out the edges in case they are sticking up. And there you go. That is your waterproofing system right there. So I'm going to do the rest of the window. You can stick around and watch if you like. Or, hey, you can go out and measure your windows and get started, huh? So, needless to say, the most important seam between your window and the stucco is the top, because that's where the rain's going to hit it first. So I always put a little bit of a bigger bead on top and on the sides, and mostly you can't see it either. So it doesn't have to be too pretty, it has to be more functional than pretty. Now we did not use expanding foam on this one. Foam really expands. So if you have a 1-inch gap, you don't fill that 1-inch gap with foam. You only fill about 1/3 of it, because it will expand out, sometimes even only 1/4 of it. It expands a lot. You let it dry. If you see it coming out and dripping on your window, you want to get it off because it will leave a mark on your window. So you got to be really careful with expanding foam, but we did not need it. So we use caulk. This is a great opportunity to burn up whatever caulk you have in half tubes or whatever, because it doesn't really matter what kind. All that matters is you fill the gap between the window and the wood and the wood and the wall. What you're trying to do is stop air from coming in the outside flange and in through that gap, which it probably won't anyways because we got a good seal on the outside flange. But like I always say, I always overdo things. So that's what we're going to do on this one. This is a double stick tape we use. It's by Scotch. Home Depot sells it. Backing on one side, sticky on the other side. It's really good. It's really expensive. It's like $9 a roll. Ouch. But as I found with most stuff, the expensive stuff seems to work really good. So this is a roll of it right here. Run it out and stick it on the wood. Now, if you put a bunch of caulk on the wood, you need to probably wait till the caulk dries so it's something to stick to. But I managed to leave enough of the wood open to have this stuff stick to it. I've already put it around the rest of the window. This plastic vinyl stuff you can get usually wherever you buy your windows at. It's got double stick tape on one side. Now this double stick tape right here is for the window portion because it's not very thick. So what you do with this stuff, you cut it with normal side cutters just like this. And you don't have to get it precise because you're going to caulk between this vinyl and the drywall to hide any sort of gaps. I like to trim the top corners a little bit because the drywall itself is usually curved in the top corner right here. They never get it perfectly flat. And that should do it. I usually do the top first and then the bottom and then do a straight joint right at the between the two pieces of plastic I just put up. So just like that. Yep. And that, we will do that all the way around the window. Okay, we're done and it looks great, doesn't it? Retrofit windows always look so much nicer than the old window. Even though you have this flange around here, I don't even notice it, especially if you do your entire house and all the flange match. So, and you cannot beat the cost of a retrofit versus putting in new construction where you have to break out all the stucco. This is an airtight, watertight seal, and it works great. So this takes you about a day. If you're going to do your whole house, you know, try to do a couple weekends. Try to get help if you can. They're kind of heavy, especially if you get bigger than 4 foot by 4 foot, and you really need somebody to hold it in place while you go back inside and center it. So if you have other questions that I didn't answer, go to our Facebook group at How Now Hub. There we have tons of people there all exchanging ideas, but biggest thing of all is I will answer your questions personally on the Facebook group. If you need more instructions and tired of watching my smiling face on all these videos, go to hownowhub.com, and there we've got downloads with step-by-step instructions. We've got a list of materials, we've got a list of what they'll cost you, a list of tools you'll need, everything you need, so you can kind of look at it and go, you know, I don't have enough tools, I don't have enough money, save some money. You can look at it before you ever even start measuring windows, decide if you want to go ahead and do it. Or you can just call a window contractor and pay lots of money. If you're in San Diego, I'll be happy to do it for you. Anyways, I'm David Collins Stevens, and I'll see you on the next project.
Moo. The viewers of this video acknowledge that this company and/or any persons or other companies involved in the production of this video will not be held liable in any way for any projects performed by the viewer. Always check with your local city and/or county building departments before starting your project to ensure that you are following the current building codes and the latest ordinances. Take all safety precautions necessary. Make sure all tools are working properly, have all safety features installed and are also working properly. Be sure to wear proper eye protection at all times.
Always wear your safety glasses. Don't forget to say that, Dave.
I think you just said it.
Oh no, you got it. Whoa, see that? Oh, that took a big slice out of the bag, Dave. It's scary what that can do. Oh, man.
Nope.
Oh, that's a nice little piece you got there.
Okay, okay, we're rolling here. So, pretty dang good match. I could have zoomed in on the editing, Chuck.
Oh, okay, point at it anyway.
Right there.
Oh, yeah, that's
Okay.
nice.
Yeah, you don't need to move the cameras.
Okay.
Okay.
Like that color buff?